Good morning, Southwest Florida. My name is Pastor Frank Carpenter. I am also a retired disabled Vietnam veteran. And after I retired from the military, I also worked in law enforcement. But I'm coming to you this morning, the public, because I need your help. I am soliciting your help because 7 years ago there was a grievous injustice perpetrated upon my family and I. And as you know, we are the employers of our elected officials, and I want to ask you to stand with me, because I believe that was Sir Edmund Burke said that evil flourish where good men do nothing. And another extinguished gentleman said that that anytime there is an injustice anywhere, it is an attack on justice everywhere. And there was injustice done to my family. My youngest son was killed on July the 2nd, 2007. And I am not making accusation. Everything I have, I can prove it with their documents. That the Sheriff Department in Charlotte County did no investigation. They closed the case on the validity of the so-called witnesses. And even though there was evidence showing that these women was lying, some of it was proven, and even after they found out the women was lying, they told me that they knew the women was lying, but the women was lying to cover up something other than the murder. But they never called them back. And my understanding of the law is that if you lie on the oath to investigators, then you have committed perjury. And perjury is punishable by a prison sentence. I believe it's a third-degree felony. As a matter of fact, there are two ladies that just got in trouble about lying to investigators, George Zimmerman's wife and another lady doing the investigation of her husband's murder. And so what I'm asking you for is simply to write, text, you email our governor.
This portion of Lee Pitts Live is brought to you by
and our Attorney General, Ms. Pam Bundy. I want to ask them that they will ask the Sheriff Department to reopen this case and solve it. Because right now, the reason I said there was no investigation, it began on the morning of July the 2nd, as I said. I got a call at 10:15 in the morning. When I got to the crime scene, it was 10:30. I didn't introduce myself. I simply got out of my automobile and asked a question. I asked what was going on. Someone in the crowd said there'd been a double murder down in that house where you see all the police. And he continued. He said, as a matter of fact, the word coming out of the house is that it was a murder-suicide. Now this is at 10:30 in the morning. Police said they got the call at 5 o'clock. So this is approximately 5.5 hours later. But it's what really is peculiar because they hadn't even started the investigation. According to their document, they didn't start the investigation until 11 o'clock because they said they waited for a search warrant. Now, however, there was people in and out of the house. When I was standing there looking, I was assuming that the investigation had already started. Now, the reason why I am concerned is because once they found out these women was lying, they told me, no, we didn't use their statements to solve this crime. What we used was forensic evidence. And later on, I'm going to get into why the forensic evidence was no good, because mainly they never collected any. And the next thing is they would talk about a lot of blood spatter evidence. They have no blood spatter expert in Charlotte County Sheriff Department. There's also the problem with how my son committed suicide, that he's supposed to have shot himself in the back of the head with a shotgun. Now, when I talked to the Sheriff Department about this, they continued to change. Every time I asked a question, they would change and give me a different answer from the first one. I asked, how could my son have fired more than 5 shots with a revolver that was only loaded with 5 rounds? And there had to be at least 6 shots fired. The victim was shot 4 times, and one of the witnesses claimed he shot her twice. So it was a revolver, 5 shots, but there was 6 shots fired in that house. And I simply asked why they didn't investigate it and on that line. And so I also want to know why they did not follow up on any of the leads. People called TIPS hotline, and they some came forward, gave their testimony on what happened, but no leads was followed up. They simply say my son did it, even though they didn't even do the basic of the investigative technique. They didn't take fingerprints off the murder as suicide weapon. They didn't do a gunshot residue test on my son's hand. They told me that these tests was done 2 years later. I have documents showing they sent a GSR kit and fingerprint kit out in 2009. Yes, I believe when we left off, I was telling you that the reason why I was saying that the sheriff department never did an investigation. Now, at the beginning, I told you I worked in law enforcement, so I feel I'm qualified to make these statements. I don't make accusation. These are statements of fact that I can prove with their own document. Now, when the sheriff department, when they went in the house, they went in the house with blinders on. They was so sure that they had a open and shut case of murder-suicide simply off of the testimony of these 2 witnesses. Now, I have my the reason I believe that they did not do an investigation, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not gonna make an accusation. I'll let you make your own, come up with your own decision. But my son and his friend was black, and the 2 witnesses was white. And they ignored all of the evidence showing that there was other peoples in the house. The witnesses saying that there was only 4 peoples in the house, the 2 victims and the 2 female witnesses. They ignored one of the primary rules of investigative technique. Number 1, everyone at a murder scene is a suspect until the evidence clears them. They didn't take that approach. They looked at these women as victims from the very beginning, and you can see that in their interview. They also overlooked all the other evidence. They overlooked the ruts in the yard where you can see cars left in a hurry, spinning their tires. They overlooked the fact that out on the patio there were fresh beers on the table, and overturned chairs could tell someone got up from the table in haste and to leave. And these people were there because it was coming up to the 4th of July holiday, and they was having a little party. They was getting ready for the 4th of July. And we know that no young person walks off and leave a fresh Bud Light beer. If they want to leave, they would pick it up and carry it with them. They ignored the fact that there was a video game still playing on the TV. There was another witness came forward, and she told them vital information that it could have helped them solve this case, but they simply ignored her interview. And so that's why I say they did no investigation. I asked them would they please just check the blood on a white T-shirt that was found away from the crime scene. None of that was done. And then one of the witnesses said that my son walked in and shot her first, and then shot his friend. That was 2 shots. Then his friend was shot an additional 4 times. So that would have been 6 shots already, 5 shots. And then she said he came back and shot her a 2nd time. Now the gun was only loaded with 5 shots. I asked how could he shoot her a 2nd time if he had already shot the 5 rounds that the gun was loaded with. Next thing, she said that she didn't see what went on because my son's friend jumped up and they fought over the gun and they moved out of her line of sight. However, all of the spent projectiles was found in the bedroom where she says she never left. And all of this evidence, but they just simply overlooked it. And they they was so sure that my son had committed the crime. There was the victim, one of the other victim, the witness that she had been shot twice, but neither round entered from the front. Like she said, my son, she said she looked up from eating Chinese food, and it's in her statement. And when she looked up, said my son had a gun pointed at her and shot her point blank in the chest. That is not the wound that was what the doctors found at Lee Memorial Hospital. Both shot was from the back. She had one that was across the back. It was just a grazing shot. Then she had one that was a penetrating wound. There was no exit wound. So that had to be another spent projectile in her. I asked them what caliber was that round that they removed from her. They don't even broach that subject, simply because they had retrieved 5 spent projectiles, and they were saying that those were the 5 projectiles that was fired from the gun. Now, there had to be another gun in the house. Nobody looked for it. They never did get fingerprints off of the weapon. 2 years later, they sent me paperwork showing that they sent the test out in 2009, 2 years after they had closed the case. But they told me that they didn't use the women's testimony because the women had lied so much until they couldn't use it. But the only truth they told in their testimony was that my son shot his friend and killed him, then shot his roommate, the witness, and then shot himself in the back of the head with a shotgun. Now, to make that statement to a mother after her child is dead and then come in and tell her yes and he committed suicide, it's very cold-hearted. So that's why I am coming to you mothers out there that have children. You know how you would feel if your child was killed. Your mother that have lost a child, you know how my wife feels. So I'm asking you, will you please write the Governor Scott? Will you call him? Will you write Ms. Bundy or call her, text her? And my name, my phone number, and my Facebook account. You can reach me on my Facebook at Frank Carpenter. And there's a phone number on there. You can email me at my email address. Hello, Southwest Florida, we're back. I believe after we was, when I left, I was talking to you about what the Sheriff Department didn't do. At this time, I want to talk to you about the witnesses. One of the witnesses that, one of the key witnesses, they failed to mention in the newspaper reports or any other report that she had just, she was on probation from prison, parole from prison, where she had did 3 years of a 5-year sentence for robbery. And this wasn't just a robbery, it was a robbery of her own mother. She and her boyfriend had robbed her mother, tied her up with the cord from a lamp, stole her car and drove on up to New York. They was arrested at Yonkers, New York. But they failed to mention that. This woman had numerous other arrests. And the second witness, they failed to mention that she was hooked on prescription drugs. One mistake I made, I should have had her, she should be in federal prison, because I had to have my mail carrier deliver my medication to the door because she stole my medication, which was a hydrocodone. She stole it out of my mailbox. These were the sterling witnesses that they closed this case on, simply on their testimony. I also like to mention that they closed the case even before the autopsy reports was finished, because they officially closed this case on the 13th of July, but you didn't get the toxicology report back until the first one came in on the 21st and the last one came in on the 30th. Now these women told the investigators that my son and his friend was snorting lines of cocaine and drinking shots of brandy. This was what the sheriff used as motive. They said that my son was out of his mind, high on cocaine and alcohol. However, when the toxicology report came back, Douglas had absolutely no alcohol in his system, and my son, Douglas, either one, had no appreciable cocaine in their system. They did have traces, but it was in the cell. It had already metabolized, so they could not have snorted cocaine on that night. They also lied. The one witness, she told him that she had been with Douglas where he lived with friends when he wasn't at my son's house. Now, Douglas lived with friends over in Northport. This woman lived in Port Charlotte most of her life. She knows the difference between the city of Northport and Port Charlotte. However, she said that Douglas was living right off of Peachland on some street she couldn't remember. And she told him that they called a taxi back to their house, to my son's house. They didn't even follow up on that. If they had followed up on that, they would found out she was lying. Now, my son's girlfriend, she told them that she came home at 12:30 and she was so tired, she went straight to bed. However, at 2 o'clock, she said she was back up, calling a friend, telling a friend, come over, bring your car so I can go shopping. Now, when they asked her why she didn't, they asked her what she went shopping for. She said she went shopping for a cigarette. Now, when they asked her, why didn't you go to the Shell station within walking distance from your house? She said, oh yes, we went there, but I didn't have my ID card and they wouldn't sell me a cigarette. So we went on down to Walgreens. The clerk in Walgreens said, yes, I remember her, and she had an ID. I ID'd her. Now, in the surveillance video, we see where she put her wallet on the counter, and in fact, the clerk did ID her. But she did not appear on the surveillance tape in the Shell station. She also said that when the first shot was fired, she ran out of the house, and she was running down the streets, calling for someone to call 911. Now, my son had a cell phone, and she had it in her possession when the investigators got to the house. But then she said she left when the first shot was fired, but when she got to the lady house that opened the door and called 911 for her, she said that the lady would not let her in because she was covered in blood. So why would she be covered in blood if she ran at the first shot? Then she returned back to the house. She's saying that she running for her life, thinking that you got a homicidal maniac in there shooting everyone. But she returned back to the house before the police got there. And when she got back, she said a friend told her that my son had committed suicide, and she was so distraught she had to go see for herself. And when she went in and she was talking about how horrible it was, but however, when she was leaving out of the house, she had 1 second of clarity of thought. She said she saw my son's wallet lying on the table, and she picked it up so she could identify him when the police got there. These women, after their name, everything else they told the investigator was a lie. I looked at the report from the lead detective. He talked to my son's girlfriend for 38 minutes. He started interviewing her at 6:17. At 6:55, the interview ended. However, his report that he made out that evening, he stated that he released her to her family because it was clear that she had absolutely nothing to do with the shooting. How could you clear someone after speaking with them for 38 minutes? If he had waited and just compared her statement, he would have found out that she was lying. But after that, they had already closed the case, and so what they have been doing now for the last 6 years is basically covering up. So I just simply want justice. I don't want revenge. I want closure for my family. So that's why I'm asking your help. I will be right back. We're back Southwest Florida. I just want to let you know that you can watch this show on YouTube. If you miss it on Sunday morning, it's Lee Pitts Live. And you also, please contact me at the phone number that is displayed on the screen, and you can reach me on Facebook. Now, I just want to, in closing, I just want to tell you how they say my son committed suicide. He took a 26-inch barrel shotgun, shot himself in the back of the head, but his body didn't fall the way of the blast. They said it fell back against the blast. Then the shotgun it defied the law, which shotguns do. When you fire it and you don't hold it flies away. But this one, what it did is fell flat. It fell to the floor. They said stock first, forced the slide back and ejected the shell. Then his body fell on top of the shotgun and the shell. And all of these things are physically impossible. He would have had to defy the law of physics. So I just need your help. Please contact me. Contact me at the number that is on the screen on YouTube, but contact your elected official for me, please. Thank you.